Hey peeps, welcome to another reading vlog. As you can tell by the title, I am going to be reading a couple books that I am the most intimidated by that are on my physical TBR. These are books that I've been putting off for years and I just want to read them. I just want to get them off my TBR. So I figured that I would just make a reading vlog out of it, and every time I look at my TBR, I look at these books and I'm like, I will get to you eventually. But not right now. I am nervous for this, obviously, because I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know how I will feel about these books, but that's the reason I'm doing this video, to find out. And now I will no longer look at my TBR and hate myself a little bit, because I'm like, why have those books been on there since... Do I even want to admit how long they've been on there? Honestly, I will say one of them at least since 2017. The other one, I don't know the year, but it's probably either the same year or maybe 1 year later, but it's been like 6 years, and that's not good. So we're gonna read them. So the first book I am picking is The Petting Zoo by Jim Carroll, and the second one is probably one that most people are also intimidated by, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. So here we are, my two books, my intimidators, my struggles. Look at them, they're both black and white, gray and white. That's probably how they'll make me feel too. So we're gonna start off with The Petting Zoo by Jim Carroll. This is a book that I found in a random Chicago bookstore. I don't remember what it's called. Honestly, maybe it was called Myopic, but wait, I think there's a bookmark in here. Oh no, this is the book. I found a ticket in there. Hold on, we'll get to that. But I thought there was a book. Look at this. Yes, it's from Myopic Books in Chicago on Milwaukee Avenue. And I was just browsing and I don't know, I saw the spine, picked it out, read the inside, and I was honestly intrigued, so I did buy it. But it did come with this book. It says An Evening with the Watkins Family Hour, Old Town School of Folk Music. Oh wait, there is a name on this. Maybe that's who bought it. I don't know. Anyway, it's pretty cool. I found a ticket in there. But we have The Petting Zoo by Jim Carroll. I'm going to read the inside of this because honestly I don't remember what this book is about. The Petting Zoo tells the story of Billy Wolfram, an enigmatic 38-year-old artist who had become a hot star in the late 1980s New York art scene. As the novel opens, Billy, after viewing a show of paintings at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, is so humbled and awed by their spiritual power that he suffers an emotional breakdown and retreats to his Chelsea loft. In seclusion, Billy searches for the divine spark in his own work and life. What is blocking him from getting back into the zone where his inspiration will flow again? Is it something from his past, something he is missing? As Carroll's novel moves back and forth in time to present, moments from Billy's life, his Irish Catholic upbringing, his teenage escapades, his evolution as an artist. So The Petting Zoo is a frank, haunting examination of one artist's personal and spiritual quest. And then we have A Little Life. I actually did start this book. I think I got 18 pages in and stopped because I just wasn't in the mood for it in that moment, and I didn't continue on. I just didn't pick it back up again. But now it is time. So A Little Life follows four college classmates, broke adrift and buoyed only by their friendship and ambition, as they move to New York in search of fame and fortune. While their relationships, which are tinged by addiction, success, and pride, deepen over the decades, the men are held together by their devotion to the brilliant, enigmatic Jude, a man scarred by an unspeakable childhood trauma. A hymn to brotherly bonds and a masterful depiction of love in the 21st century. It's about families we are born into and those that we make for ourselves. Honestly, these are two books that I would want to read. So it really doesn't make sense that I'm so intimidated by them and that I'm pushing them back so much. But I just think that, I don't know, I'm just nervous. I really don't have a true explanation for it. We shall begin my intimidating reads. I'm gonna start with The Petting Zoo just because this one is shorter. It's a little over 300 pages. A Little Life is obviously, I think, 800 pages. We'll save A Little Life for a second. I also know that this has destroyed a lot of people, and it's probably gonna destroy me too. So first up, The Petting Zoo. I will start this tonight and give you my thoughts tomorrow. Okay, it's now or never. Here we go. Wish me luck. I might need it. but it is the next day and I got to page 109 of The Petting Zoo. It starts off, our main character Billy, he's like running down the steps of the museum in New York, and he was looking at this painting and it kind of affected him in a very intense way, and he starts essentially hallucinating, and he ends up like breaking into this petting zoo because he's always liked the zoo, I guess, as a kid. So he like went back to the zoo in New York, but they were doing construction on it and stuff, so he like broke into the petting zoo part, and then he hears a voice but like nobody's there. Then he ends up just walking around New York. He ends up getting back out of the petting zoo, and then he ends up in a cop car because someone called the cops on him and saying that he was saying threatening things and talking about a knife and stuff. And he was telling the cops, he's like, no, I was just like saying that this building looks like another building and it was reminding me of this. And it's very, I don't want to say all over the place, but it's like his mind is all over the place. It's written in third person, so you're getting him and what he's doing and some of his thoughts, but it's not directly in his head, but you're still getting the chaos that's going on in his mind. After that, the cops do take him to this hospital, and he ends up in the psychiatric ward, and then it talks about the people he encounters in there. He's in there for only a couple days, and then he gets out. They just have to make sure that he's not going to harm himself or others. So there's encounters with the other patients in there, and then it talks about those situations, and then it does constantly go back and forth between present day and like his past life, which is a lot on his past and instances that happened and stuff that he's been through. And the book is essentially just that, really. So I don't necessarily know if there's, I don't want to say I don't know if there's a reason yet, because I feel like the reason of this book is to just read about this character's life and what he's been through and what he's going through. And I think it's trying to be a book that will completely change your outlook on life and make you think about things in a different way after reading about this person's story, but there's not really a plot to it. That's why I think the point of the book is to just read about a character. I don't really know. Now we're at the point where he was released from the hospital and he's back in his apartment, and we'll just see what goes from there. It is split into 3 parts, so I thought part 1 would maybe just be that kind of chaos event to get him into the hospital and whatnot, and then part 2 would start kind of like a more plot driven story, but it's the same. We're just getting paragraphs about his past and present day. So I'm not too sure. I think that this is a book that I won't really be able to get a hint at a rating until I finish it. There's got to be something later on that makes sense with the story, but right now I don't really know. I am worried that it's gonna start to get a little harder for me to get through at this point. I can't really give true feelings until I finish the book, I think, because I think it's just one of those books. It seems confusing because you don't really know what is meant to be going on, but I think that's the point of the book also, so that's why I'm kind of conflicted. It's like when you're reading it, you just seem confused because you're like, what is the point? It's only 327 pages, so hopefully it won't take me too long to get through. I'll maybe finish it tomorrow. I don't know. I'll see you in my next update. My updates on the petting zoo. It's currently Friday. I finished this on Wednesday and I started it Tuesday, so I just finished it fairly quickly, but I did skim like the last half of the book. I wanted to DNF it, but I also just had to know what was going to happen in the end because I needed there to be a point, but it really did lack in that department. There's not anything else that happened for me to talk on. It was still just a whole bunch of situations in his past and with different people, but mostly just himself, and there still wasn't any plot that got built on. I mean, I don't have much to say about it. There was just a ton of descriptions for situations that didn't add to a plot, and the whole point of the book, I thought we were getting a lot on him being an artist, but there really wasn't anything. Everything else in the book was so descriptive, and the author was trying to just use the biggest words possible, I feel like, especially if there was dialogue. These characters are talking in words that nobody ever uses in real life, especially when it went back to his past. He's younger, he's like 16, and people are still, it's like the same dialogue, same type of words being used, which just doesn't feel real. There was no fluctuation in the time changes in the story, which made it a little hard to see him when we were going back and forth between past and present, because even though he was younger back then, you couldn't really tell he wasn't really different. The writing, didn't make him seem younger. So yeah, I did end up just skimming the rest to see what happened. I did give this book a 1 star, and I'm really disappointed because reading the synopsis, I thought that it would be something that I would really enjoy. It just wasn't. That is The Petting Zoo. I definitely felt like I needed some time before I start A Little Life, so I did pick up Powerless. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series. Obviously this has nothing to do with this video because I'm not intimidated by this at all in any sense. I did just need something after The Petting Zoo because I feel like that was just putting me in a slump 150 pages into that book. So I was like, I need something I know I'm gonna love, and boy do I love this book. I kind of wish I was doing a reading vlog for that, but I can't unread it and read it again, and that's so sad. But yeah, I'm like 300 pages into this. This is 500 pages, so I'm gonna finish this today and then we'll start A Little Life, which is crazy. These books are the same size pretty much, if you can tell. This one's 500 pages, this one's 800 pages. These pages are super thin. I'm hoping it doesn't take me too long to read A Little Life, but I don't know how it's gonna go. I can only hope. And I hope that I at least enjoy this one. I'll finish Powerless today, hopefully start this tonight. I probably won't read a ton of it. We'll see how many days it takes me to read this. Hopefully it doesn't take me until the end of October. It's time. Okay, long time no see. For me, at least, not for you. It's been like a second. I need to update. I haven't updated since I started this book. It's been almost a week since I started this. I think I started this last Thursday and it's Wednesday now. But I am a little over halfway through now. I'm on page 420 and there's a little over 800. This is taking me a while to get through. It is a very hard read. There's not a lot of dialogue, so you're just reading a lot of words on a page. It's a book that you definitely have to pay attention to what's happening. You have to read everything. If you don't, you're going to be very confused. This is written in 3rd person, which I feel like can be confusing compared to 1st person because you're not in one person's head, or you don't get the different point of views when chapters start. So there's a lot of different people that you can be getting their point of view on, and if you're not paying attention, you'll get confused and you won't necessarily know who you're reading about. And yeah, so this does follow 4 guys who were roommates in college, and they've been friends ever since, and they have a very strong friendship and connection. And one of them, his name is Jude. He's pretty much the main character in this. Obviously it talks about the other 3 a lot, but Jude is our main focus in this story, and his story is incredibly heartbreaking. I've already cried reading this. I don't know when things really start to go down. The first time I cried, it was happy tears, and then the second time, just something so bad was happening, and it's hard. It really is, and I am so scared to continue this because I know that I'm gonna be a mess. I have that feeling. But as I'm reading, I'm expecting something really bad to happen, and I am just scared for that moment. And it's also interesting too because with The Petting Zoo, it was the story about an artist's life. It was just their situations and their stories, things that had happened to that character. And this is essentially the same thing, but I'm liking this one so much more than The Petting Zoo. The characters are just very easy to connect with and care for. I literally feel like I care for Jude in real life, and I care for the other people in this story. There's just amazing characters in this book, and it's very well written. And this book is making me view life not necessarily differently, but it's reminding me of how I need to view life, and it's just getting all of those thoughts to the front of my mind as I'm reading it and as I'm going through it, which I really appreciate. Even talking about it, I know that I'm nervous for what's to happen. I don't know what is gonna happen. I haven't had any spoilers on this or anything, but everybody says it's heartbreaking, so I'm assuming it's something bad. And there's been a lot of bad things that have already happened in this book, but guys, I'm dreading it. I really am. And it's taken me a week to get through half of it. I feel like now I'm starting to read it a little bit faster. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because now that I'm so used to the characters, it's easier for me to figure out who we're talking about once the chapters start. But once you know the characters and you know who is related to them, like relationship wise, once they start talking about that at the beginning of a chapter, you just know who we're talking about. So then it just flows easier. I feel like if you've read this book, you're probably like, girl, you are in for it. I don't know what I'm in for though. I'm scared. These chapters are also, some of them are like 80 pages long. So be prepared for that. I usually don't stop in the middle of chapters when I'm reading. I always just push through the end of a chapter. But these are long. It's split up into, I think, 6 or 7 different sections. And then you have the chapters in those sections. And most of the time, the sections are like over 200 pages. And there's 3 chapters. But yeah, I have been just stopping in the middle of chapters because there's no way. So far, so good, but it's about to get messy. Honestly, one of the last chapters I read, I thought the ending of the chapter was just gonna have something so bad, and it didn't. And oh my god, my heart was beating so fast. I was like, please just give me more time. Like, I need more time before this starts going downhill. We finished. It is now actually days later, but I just didn't update immediately after I finished. So we're gonna talk about the rest of this. This took me about a week to finish, which is actually pretty good because it was taking me quite a while to get through like the first half, and then once the last half hit, I was flowing really well, and it was easier to read for me because I had known all the characters by then and it wasn't as confusing. So I first want to say that I did get spoiled because I'm dumb and I looked at Goodreads, because sometimes I treat Goodreads like my social media, and instead of scrolling through Instagram, I'll scroll through Goodreads for some reason. So I did go to this book and look at some of the reviews, and obviously if there's spoilers in the reviews, it usually says that. And there was one, it was a 1-star, and I was like, I wonder like what the 1-star raters are thinking. So I was kind of reading a little bit of a 1-star review, and then I looked at the comments, which I didn't get spoiled in the review, but I got spoiled in a comment. And then I was like, yeah, I hated how this happened, and I was like, oh my god. Of course that would happen to me. So when that part came, it didn't really affect me because I already knew what was happening. I think if I didn't get spoiled, I definitely would have had different feelings, obviously. But I did get spoiled, and it was very unsettling and off-putting, but there's a lot of stuff that happened in this book. Life just happens and you can't control that. So it made sense that it was in this book. Obviously I can't say what it is. I just want to let everybody know that I did get spoiled. So my emotions were already prepared for that moment, I guess. And then there was something that happened at the end too, which you kind of know going throughout the whole book that it was bound to end up happening. I did still cry at the end. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. I think it's because of the spoil, but that's okay. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. This whole book it's sad. There are some happy moments in there. Like I said before, I was crying during a happy moment and it just filled my heart, but the rest of the book is super devastating. So if you're thinking about going into this, there's a lot of heavy topics, so if you would like to look up a list of trigger warnings, I would definitely recommend that. There is a lot of child abuse, physically, sexually, and mentally. There is a lot of self-harm. There's a lot of medical stuff going on if you don't like to read about people dealing with medical stuff. I don't know if that's a common trigger for most people, but I just want to put that out there too, because I personally don't like anything that has to do with doctors, and medical stuff does kind of freak me out too, which in this book it didn't affect me. There was one moment where it was making me really uneasy, but I think that might be just me. But I do just want to throw that out there in case you would be affected in any type of bad way with that. There is loss of a person in this too. So those are the main ones. I'm sure there's little ones too. So if you just want a specific list, I would recommend looking that up before you start this book. If you were thinking about getting into this book, I know a lot of people just want to read this book because it's talked about a ton in the world, and it is one of like the highest rated books out there. And after reading it, I can tell why. I rated it pretty high. First, starting off, the back of the book, it says A Little Life follows 4 college classmates as they just venture through life, their journeys and their struggles. After reading that, I thought we were going into the book getting a lot of interactions between those 4 specifically, and it was going to be mainly focused on their friendship, which it was in a way, but we're mainly focusing on one of them, which is Jude, and he kind of ties them all together, and he's kind of the glue of the 4 of them. But there's 2 of them that don't show up a ton in the book. They are there, you do learn about them, but they're not as prominent in the book as I thought they were going to be. There are more characters in here that are shown more than them and that kind of have a more important role in the story and in Jude's life. Despite what you think going into this book, it's not just going to be a college story. It takes place over their whole entire lives. You get past tense of all the characters, but mostly Jude. You're getting the present tense and then their future, and you're just going through literally their whole journey. So that's why it's a pretty long book. I will say by like the 650 mark, I was at that point anticipating the wrap up and hoping for the book to draw to a close. I think just because I had read so much at that point. It's not that I was sick of it, but there was a lot of repetition at that point, which was essential because what was being repeated happened a ton to the character and was the most essential part to himself and his whole being. So that was kind of the only thing. I do think this book was pretty long, but then in the same sense it was needed. In the beginning of the book, you really have to pay attention to what is going on and what makes the characters them, because a lot of the chapters as the book goes on, you're kind of expected to know who we're talking about as soon as you start the chapter, because their name isn't really mentioned until pages in to that chapter. So if you don't know who they're talking about towards the beginning, you're probably going to be confused and you're not going to enjoy what you're reading because you have no idea what's going on. So if you're starting this book, it may be a lot, but just really pay attention in the beginning and get to know the characters and take your time at the beginning. That's why it's so slow. I know a lot of people say that the first couple hundred pages of this book are slow, but it is needed in order to learn about your characters and you really form super strong connections to them because they're so well written. So just be warned of that, because you're gonna fall in love with these characters and you're gonna be extremely connected to them and care about them, and it could destroy you. I don't think that this is a book that you should just go into thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna read this, whatever. It's a lot. So just read this at a time where you think it's gonna be okay. I know when I read a lot of books, I get distracted and sometimes I'm reading the words on the pages and I'm like 5 pages through and then I have no idea what I just read because I'm thinking about other things in my head. Like I'm reading the words but nothing is being retained in my brain, and you definitely cannot do that with this book because you're gonna hate it. So I would just say take it slow. Don't force yourself to get through this at a certain rate. Just take your time with it and really learn what is being written, and I think you will really appreciate this book and these characters and the writing and the story. This is a book that changes the way you think a lot, and I really wish I would have annotated this. At the beginning I wasn't, because I was like 50 pages in and I didn't have a tab in it yet, but then as I was going through it there was just a ton of stuff that I really appreciated and I wasn't tabbing it. And I know I'm never going to reread this because it was a lot. I don't know. I do kind of regret not annotating. I do highly recommend this though. I just think you need to go into it very carefully. Be in a good place before you go into it. That is A Little Life, finally off my TBR, and it's definitely a book that I will think about for years to come because it's a very important story. I think it just needs to be read by a lot of people. Just to recap, my first read was The Petting Zoo by Jim Carroll. I wasn't a fan of this one. I did give this a 1 star. This one I just couldn't connect with the characters. I just didn't really see the point in reading about what the character was going through. It just didn't seem like it was adding to his story or the story in general. So this one just didn't work for me. I'm glad I did this though, because those 2 books were sitting on my TBR for the longest time. I was looking at Goodreads and A Little Life, I was looking at my updates, and I had started it, I think it said 5 years ago, and then I didn't pick it up until now, 5 years later. And even before 5 years, I had it on my TBR for even longer than that. We're done now. They're off my TBR. I've read them. I know what I think about them, and I'm very happy that I did this. I think if there's a book that you have been putting off, definitely make sure it's the right time to read it, but it's probably going to be worth it, and you're going to feel better about yourself after you get off of your TBR. I would recommend A Little Life to anybody who is in the right headspace and would like to pick that up. Just don't force yourself to go through it fast or be like, I'm not reading this fast enough. Just don't let that get to you. Just take your time and read other books in between if you need to. So that is going to be it for my reading, my most intimidating reads on my TBR. I hope you enjoyed. I know that I didn't talk too much as I was going through the books, but my feelings were pretty much the same going through the 2 books as I was reading them. They were definitely books that I needed to save my thoughts for the end. But yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Let me know what book you are most intimidated by that's on your TBR, and I will see you later.